Welcome back to MMAOddsBreaker. Today, of course, we have, if you don't know who Ken is, I don't know why you bother paying attention to me, because he's the icon, one of the guys that got me into the sport, to be honest with you. His epic battles back in UFC 1, 2 was the reason why I liked watching MMA and fell in love with it. Ken, I got to ask, though, man, why still now, at your wise age, would you still be looking to get punched in the face?
Well, I don't want to get punched in the face. Hopefully it doesn't happen. I love it. I know I stepped away for a while, and I think the same thing happens. I think the same thing happens with a lot of athletes. When they walk away from the sport, a lot of them wish they hadn't, like they had a few more years in them, or they second guess themselves. I've seen a lot of that. And for me, I thought to myself when I walked away, I talked with my wife, and my wife reassured me that, life is short and that you get to live it one time. And if you're going to leave something that you really have loved doing for so long, make sure that it's what you want to do and not what the pressure is from all around you. And so I really thought about that, and I went back in and I started training, and it was hard to get back into it. But I felt like, well, anything that's hard is worth having. Anything that's hard to get is worth going and getting. And so I really put my mind to it, to go back to it, because I missed it. And there was an emptiness in me, and I felt like, I'm not done yet. And it wasn't about winning championships, because I've done all that. It was about me competing and living life the way I wanted to live it. And I thought to myself, talking with my wife, why would I have to stop something I love doing? And on top of it, the crazy part is that people were offering to pay me to still do it and to do something that I love doing. And I thought, you put all that together, okay, I do what I love to do. I really enjoy it. I'm capable of doing it still, and they're going to pay me. What is there not reasonable about that?
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Like, you convinced me. When this fight was first announced between you and Gracie, I personally was like, who cares? Like, this is stupid. These are two old guys. They've passed their prime. They're two heroes in the sport. They're legends. Let's let them be legends, and let's leave it alone. Let's just lay it to rest. And then I realized that as I'm saying all this, I've got it marked on my calendar a half hour before the fight starts. I'm going to watch the whole fight card. I'm anticipating this fight. I'm going to watch the entire fight. I'm like, so I'm saying this is dumb. Let's not watch it. And I am going to watch it. 100%. I was always going to watch it. Now listen to you tell me, okay, why are you still doing this? It's even more so like, okay, I really got to pay attention to this fight now. I really got to see how this thing pans out. But even still, the sport has changed so much since you started, and even more so, in my opinion, since you left in 2010 before you came back in 2015. Those 5 years, the sport exploded all around you. Techniques, attitudes, how people sell fights. You come from a pro wrestling background. You understand how to sell a fight. These guys have changed everything, how it's done. Is there anything about the sport right now that you don't particularly like, how the sport's progressed since your absence?
Well, yeah, there's definitely one big one, and that's the opportunity for fighters to be able to negotiate contracts. Because there's only one big organization out there, they have to take what's given to them. And not that it's UFC's fault, and not that it's, the fighter's fault. It's just the way things are. And you'd be crazy as an organization to pay somebody a lot more money when you don't have to. I mean, obviously, we all understand that. So it's not like that you're going to hate one or the other or put one or the other one down, because that's just the world we live in. What I don't like is that that's exactly it. Is there's no other organization. Bellator's starting to get there because you're starting to see guys really start looking that way. But there's really nowhere for these fighters to go other than the UFC to make that big money. And I think that's what I think the sport that I don't like about it is that the fighters don't have a real good platform to negotiate from and say, listen, I could go here or I could go there. Who wants to pay me more? And so I think that's what's missing in the sport today is that there's really no opportunity for fighters to really get paid what they should get paid.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, and I've always said that each and every single one of us are worth $1 million every single time we step inside that cage because we're putting our lives on the line. But it's not what we get. We get what we negotiate, and it's just a negotiation process, and you have to have some kind of footing to stand on. And obviously, with Bellator, you have a huge footing because they jumped the chance to have you and bring you into the roster, and now they're making you main event. How is this fight between you and Royce going to be different than the last time?
Well, I'm actually pretty happy about it. One, I think that if you look back at the history of it, there was always something funny going on, whether it was, the shoes being taken away. I know they joke about that, but as well as I do, if something like that gets taken away from you 24 hours before a fight and you don't get a chance to practice in them, and that's all you've really done is had shoes, it's a big part. So I know it's hard for fans to understand that. And then, of course, the time limit and the change in venue and different things like that happened early on. This year everything is even. I mean, we're going into this thing. There's no funny business going on, and we're going to fight. But I think the biggest thing that you'll see different in this fight is that when I fought him last time, I had 2.5 years of experience in grappling, in the ring experience. Royce had 25 or 27 years under his belt, plus 50 years of his family behind him. So there was a tremendous amount of experience on their side and not so much on mine. And there was no way of going to somebody to go, hey, can you prepare me for this fight and set up a strategy? Because during those days, there was no such thing. There were no gyms around you could go to and go, hey, I need you, the training partners, to do this, and do that. I couldn't find guys to actually be able to do what Royce did. It was really hard, but I figured out a strategy when I fought him the first time was to just basically ground and pound him, follow the hips, flatten him out, block the submission, ground and pound him, and don't let him move so much. And I implemented that plan to a T, especially in the second fight. So this fight, the thing that I really feel comfortable about is that on the ground I have a tremendous amount of experience now, where there's nothing on the ground that I have not seen coming from Royce or anybody else, because I've been a part of this thing since the start till now and been involved in it. So my experience is tremendous. So I'm not going to be afraid when I'm on the ground to attempt a submission or to move out of the guard to be able to get a better position to punch him or submit him to get a better angle for something. So it's not going to be sitting in the guard, follow the hips and ground and pound. It's going to be going after him, pressuring him, using my strength and my size to make him uncomfortable and to try to finish the fight in the first round. And if I don't get it in the first round, to finish in the second round. This is not going to be a slow-paced fight like it was in the second fight, where I was a little bit more cautious because I didn't understand the gi or I didn't have that much experience in the submission game.
Do you believe in ring rust? Is ring rust a thing that you think about as an athlete? Do you believe in that concept? Some athletes like it. Some athletes are like, yeah, there's ring rust. And some athletes are like, no, there's no such thing as ring rust. Where do you fall?
Well, I think it's pretty clear if you look at my last fight. Basically 10 times out of 10 times, Kimbo gets his ass kicked. I mean, it just happens. I was out of the ring for a while. I made some rookie mistakes where you're in a gym and you're rolling with guys and you catch them and they tap and you let go. That's what you do. And since I hadn't been in the ring for so long, that I had that tendency when I jumped on him and I caught him in the choke and he did that quick tap on the elbow, I eased up to a point and he was able to get his chin down. Yes, absolutely. And that's a clear point right there, because in a fight, if you've been fighting for some time, you don't let up on that because it's not practice. So, that's a pretty clear example.
Then now you're looking at Royce. He hasn't competed since June of 2007. So right. Now we have a situation where you're bigger. Just naturally, you're a bigger human being than he is. You just are. That's just the way it works. The Gracie diet has done him no favors, other than the fact that kept him lean. It kept him lean. All right. So he's right. Like what, 180 pounds soaking wet with a gi on, 185. So he's a smaller guy. Obviously not as strong as you, right? has way more leverage, understanding of body mechanics, because, like you said, there's so many more years of jiu-jitsu than you do of grappling. But for me, the glaring factor is he's going to have so much ring rust coming in. And the sport has changed so much that since the last time that he's in a real hard, pounding, like, okay, this is kind of what the sport has become kind of fight, was against Matt Hughes back in 2006. Doesn't fight for a year, fights Sakuraba in 2007, but it's been since 2007, and the sport has tremendously changed at that point for his particular style. Like, you really got to know how to do stand-up, which you know. You really have to understand either how to submit or how to block submissions, which you know both. And you need to know how to wrestle, which you know. Do you think that Royce has worked on any of these other areas enough to really make an impact in this fight?
Well, it's hard to say if he's worked on enough to make an impact because everybody's different. Some people can pick it up really quick. You teach them for 3-4 months, and they just jump right into it. So it's hard to say where he's at, but I do know that he has worked on it because, like you said, it's pretty clear that the sport has changed, and I don't think he's ignorant. I don't think he's a stupid man. So I think he understands that there's definitely a weakness there for him, and he would be. And again, like I said, he's not ignorant. He would be ignorant not to go out there and try to improve on his stand-up enough to where he can get around the ring and be able to get to where he wants to be.
Right. Okay. So you went to Texas. You left California, or Nevada, actually, right? You're up in Sparks, Nevada. Is that where you're sitting right now?
Yes.
And then went to Dallas to train with your old friend, Guy Metzger, who you two basically started in the sport together, and you've come full circle. How has Guy's training and coaching changed since the last time you were coached and or trained by him?
Well, it really hasn't changed that much, other than, like you said, with the sport and the different moves and the pace of the fights. Now they're not as slow, so the training has definitely been picked up to be able to match the type of fighting that we see today. So, but really, it's basically the old school Lions Den training, and that's something that I really needed to get back to. I did with Manny in San Diego Hernandez. And working with him, and those guys did a tremendous job with me. But again, like you said, there's nothing you could practice for with the ring rust, the things you just don't think about. And so they did a good job. But I had to go to Guy because I felt like I needed to be able to look in my corner or look at the guy that was training me and have those same feelings I had when I was doing the Lions Den and the team and everything. We were all moving in the same direction and we were being dominant. And I needed that feeling again. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity to get Guy up here along with Frank in my corner to have that atmosphere again and to bring that Ken Shamrock out that at one time that was so dominant. I needed that feeling again. I needed that incentive and being able to look at Guy in the training and be able to, at times have Frank send some stuff about different types of defenses and things of that nature. It puts you in a mindset. It brings you back to that time where, that you had that edginess and that edge, and some people called it cockiness, well, whatever you want to call it. But it really is bringing me back to that time where, take no prisoners, man. This is a sport we're in, and you have to go in there and take it. You can't. No one's going to give it to you. And so it's giving me that mental edge again to be able to go out there and have that edginess and that attitude to go out there and take the fight. It's not going to be given to you. You're going to go take it.
So you're back to your old ways. You're back with your old trainer. But like we've talked about, the sport has changed. Now there's a whole new drug testing protocol that's been put in effect, and it's rightfully so. Like you saw in your absence the rampantness of steroids and performance enhancing drugs running through the sport. You saw it happen. We knew who was on it. We didn't know who was on it. And in the early days, we also knew who was on it, who wasn't on it. But then it was just like baseball in the early days. You can't fault guys for something new doing exactly what they wanted to do to try to get, to win. So all of a sudden now, hey, there's a little bit of testing, no drugs allowed, but guys are still doing it, trying to get by it. Now it's been pretty much stopped as far as we can tell. do you feel like this is a positive step in the way that the sport's going to go to help clean out the divisions, clean out how things should be done, and really for the safety of the fighters by removing PEDs as a whole and how the commissions are handling it right now? Or do you think the commissions could do an even better job of handling it at this point?
Yeah, that's one thing I haven't followed much on. I know I did, a few years back, really paid attention to it. But like up to this point, I really haven't. But I guess in my opinion is like, and I'm talking years back when I was saying something, and I don't know where it's at today, if they've changed it or not. Maybe you could tell me. But I always had a problem with them testing the guys that were in the money fight, where the guys that were making the money or the guys that were doing the world title shots, because to me it's a learned process, and the way you stop it is by going after the younger guys that are coming up and making them be able to learn how to fight, learn how to diet, and learn how to get themselves prepared going into a fight by being clean. And it's a learned process. And if you do that at the beginning of the stages of it to clean it up, instead of going after what is already there, saying, okay, we realize that something's happening here, but let's start here so that the next generation won't have these issues. Because as you and me both know, if something's happening and it's working for somebody, they'll find a way around the testing. It's just the way it is. So start at the bottom where these guys aren't making so much money. And have these guys, as they're coming up, to be able to make sure they've learned how to fight and train and be able to get themselves ready for a fight without using PEDs. And I think that, to me, that's how you'll have much more success at doing it, rather than, testing certain people at certain times or that we're just going to test the main card and the guys underneath will be going to be okay. Like I said, I don't know if those has been changed or not, but that's kind of the issue that I had when they were testing it.
Interestingly enough, that's the way that the sport has moved. Is now where in competition, out of competition, once your fight is announced, they can start testing you in some commissions. Like California will start testing you. The moment your fight's announced, they start testing you. At any level on the card, the very early prelim all the way to the main event. So it's exactly what you just said.
That's good to hear.
And now even California has gone even one more step. 2 days ago, I believe, they put an emergency thing in where you can't even dehydrate anymore to make weight in California. So you get a specific gravity test to see how dehydrated you are. So if you're too dehydrated, if you are dehydrated and you can't make weight, then you can't compete. You have to be hydrated while you make weight. And there's no IVs allowed for rehydration. So now all of a sudden we're coming into like, okay, where a lot of people are like, oh, we should have same-day weigh-in. Somebody weighs the same. You weigh what you fight at. Kind of like, what Royce did. He weighed in what he weighed in at, and he fought what he fought at, and he won tournaments. In the early days, doing just that, we've kind of come back that same level. It's like, hey, sure, we're gonna have you make weight 72 hours before, because we're talking about changing the dates and the times of when you're actually going to weigh in. You can weigh in 36 hours before, but the reality of it is when you weigh in, if you can't pass the hydration test, you still can't fight. Like, you got to be hydrated to be able to compete. And there's some other things in there I'm not so sure about yet that I got to read deeper. I'm not sure like the rules and what's the level of hydration you have to be at and all that stuff. But in general system, it's exactly where you think the sport should be going. Exactly the way you think testing should be going is where the sport has gone. So your mindset and your mentality towards the sport has actually followed suit with what you believe it should be. Do you think that this is going to change the sport even more so now, knowing that this is how things are? Do you think the sport's going to change, have another whole new reversal of how things are looked at and how things are done? Because now a lot less PEDs are going to be allowed to come in. Guys are going to, like the true, real athletes, are going to be able to survive longer. And do you see guys like you were the pioneer that started fighting as a whole, that really made people pay attention? With this new system, I kind of feel like guys at 51 years old won't be an anomaly anymore fighting. That you'll be kind of the standard, because I wasn't doing drugs, starting at 19. I've been natural my entire life, so I'm not as beat up. I'm not as broke. Do you think that's actually going to happen, or am I just, living a pipe dream?
No, I think you're right onto that, because, I know there's a lot of things that go on out there about me because of the way I'm put together. But if you look at me from the time I was in high school to when I played college football and to where I went in to actually start fighting over in Japan, and then the very first UFC. First UFC, I was 202 pounds, 201 pounds. And I remember when me and Royce did our battles, Royce was like 180, 175, 180, something like that. So we were the two smaller guys. And yet we were dominating the sport at that time. But then you saw other guys, I don't want to mention names, come in and look like bodybuilders. And there's this myth about when someone uses something that they don't have the cardio. Well, that's the absolute reversal. If they're using stuff that is for athletes, then it increases your oxygen, it increases your strength, and it increases your performance. So hearing some of the things that these guys are saying is basically, to me, is a cover-up to say, well, there's no way that I would use it because it would mess with my oxygen and I wouldn't be in shape, which I know that's bull. But as time went on, Royce Gracie ended up getting out because, and I don't know the exact reasons, but that was about the time when you started seeing guys come in there that looked like friggin' shredded, 220 pounds. And we were fighting guys from all kinds of weight classes, and I was 200 and something pounds. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. The only way I'm going to survive this thing is I may have to do the same things that they're doing in order to compete with these monsters. And so you saw me grow a little bit. But you've seen me now in the last since we started doing these tests and really being strong on these tests, I have come in around 200 pounds, 202 pounds, 205 pounds, and that's where Ken Shamrock's weight is. And it makes me angry when I hear people say some things, and I'm like, have you not followed my career? I mean, please, if I was going to be doing something, don't you think I would be bigger, especially when I went in and fought against Chemo, right? I go in at 200. I tried to put the weight on. I did everything I could because I was supposed to be bigger. I was supposed to weigh 210 pounds. I couldn't put it on. I just couldn't do it. It just wasn't there. So I came in at 200 and something pounds, 201 pounds or 202 pounds, something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. But I tried to put the weight on, and that's where I was at. And then all of a sudden I'm getting all these things about how I looked. And I say, well, excuse me for being blessed.
That's genetic code. And let's be honest, that the average American puts on 3 or 4 pounds of fat every year. So they're figuring at 51, you should at least be 225, 230 pounds because of the yearage. We're like, yeah, but that's all fat. Like, I kept working out. Like, I'm still small because I kept working out. I stayed in the gym. It's the different mentality. And it's tough. Ken, I gotta get off here because I promised to only be 15 minutes. We're already at 22 minutes, and I apologize to Dads for running long. But before we get out of here, I just want to personally thank you for bringing me to the sport and making me want to pay attention. You're the guy that got me in, and for being the legend that you are. Like, it was so important to have guys that could actually be articulate, that could conversate in the very beginning, even though the sport went dark for a long time, that you made a lot of people, a lot of long-term fans follow through and have faith that the sport was going to come back when it died before SCG sold it and the Fertittas purchased it to bring it back in the daylight that we see it as now. You and Royce really are the guys that did it for us. And me personally, I owe you a huge thank you because you guys brought me into a sport that made me money, you gave me fame, and you gave me notoriety because I was like, I want to do that. I want to be like that guy right there. I'm going to go fight. I want to be him. So I went and I fought, and I was like, okay, well, I can kind of do this too. Years later, but I did it. So thank you so much for doing that.
Well, listen, and you've made a lot of people. I'm sure you've had your fan mails and stuff like that, and it really is something special for us to be able to go on the ring, be able to fight, but most important, to be able to help people who text you all the time and saying, "Man, you've given my kid so much respect, and you've really brought him out of hanging out on the streets and going in the gym and training, and you've really saved his life." And those are the moments, and so I know you've had those moments, and it's just a special thing, and it doesn't go unnoticed with me. And I appreciate what you've been able to do for many people, and of course, me still doing what I'm doing. I am truly blessed, and I am honored to be able to continue to keep carrying that torch, and I'll do it as long as I can, as long as I'm capable of doing it safely and being able to put on the right kind of fights that people want to see. Then I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have fun doing it. And I appreciate your comments there. And I want to say this too to end on is that, and because there's been so much heat between me and Royce, and a lot of things that happened in the beginning fights, and I brought those out. But I really want to make sure that this is something that's really understood. That Royce Gracie and his family brought the UFC to us, and along with Bob Meyerowitz, they brought it to us for us to be able to compete in this event. And it's something that I want to make sure that I thank them for what they've done. But I respect Royce. And I haven't been able to say that because he was my competitor for so long and that he was my adversary. But he really is the one that really drove me to be a better fighter, to be able to reach higher because he was the guy I was going after. And so every good fighter, a great fighter that is going down the line has to have that person that makes them better, that challenges them, and that makes them rise to the occasion. And Royce Gracie was that guy for me. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands that I respect him for everything that he has done for this sport, and what he has been able to accomplish will never be accomplished again for what he was doing at his weight in those tournaments, beating 4 guys in one night. I mean, those things are gone now, but I want people to understand that what he did was tremendous. It was something when I watched it that even though he was my adversary, I really thought, wow, he's a tough dude. So I just want to make sure that goes out there, and I'm going to make sure as time goes on that people understand that I'm out there to win this fight, and I'll do what I need to do to win it, but I do respect them.
Perfect. Ken, thanks so much for coming on here. We appreciate you. Good luck and have fun. And I'm telling you for sure, I'll be sitting on my edge of my seat watching this fight. No matter what happens, I'm going to be in awe that you guys are still doing it.
Right on, brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken. Have a great rest of your training camp.
All right. Thank you. Take care.